Welcome everybody to the Cover 2 Podcast's 2019-20 NBA season predictions. I'm Nick Nenad.
I'm Jared Smith,
and
repping my Lakers.
Yes. He's got to rep his Lakers. You have a couple Lakers jerseys, don't you?
I do. I like to have a little bit of variety. You know, I've got this is the gold. Yeah. I've got the Magic Johnson throwback purple away uniform. This is the Kobe Bryant right here, 2-4. I don't have any of the current Lakers. I don't have LeBron. I definitely don't have AD or anything like that yet. But who knows? I like guys who play with a specific team for a long time. So you win a championship, you prove that you want to stay loyal to a team. Maybe I'll buy your jersey.
Yeah, well, unless you're Kawhi Leonard and you leave after winning a championship.
Woo, Kawhi Leonard.
We talk about Kawhi Leonard. We talk about LeBron James, all this stuff. But yeah, this is our 2019-20 NBA season predictions. We're not going to go through every single team. Nobody wants to hear that because there's a lot of really bad teams in the NBA too.
You want to talk about the Bulls?
No, I don't want
What about the Magic?
I mean, see, here's the thing. When I went through this too, because we took notes and you're going on these bad teams and you're reading the reports. You're like, there's no reason for me to write. I'm going to write who they drafted, but we're not talking about teams in the future. We're just talking about this year. So we're going to be kind of talking about probably 16, 18 teams here.
Let's make one thing very clear. The NBA, unlike the NFL, has a major problem with tanking.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
It is, teams do it all the time. The 76ers did it for years and years until they were able to finally get first-round pick after first-round pick after first-round pick. And finally, they are a formidable team. But tanking does not always work. And obviously, the NBA does not want to see tanking because... people aren't going to buy tickets to go to games. It's a whole thing. So, but unfortunately, there are multiple teams in the NBA who are quote unquote tanking that will never come out and say.
You want me to name them?
We could probably name a handful right now because it is the only time that we are going to talk about these teams on this particular podcast. So
probably
if you want to just name a couple.
Here's what we're not going to talk about today: the Hornets, Wizards, Cavs. We might talk about the Knicks because we might make fun of them. We're not talking about the Bulls. Probably not talking about the Hawks either. Definitely not talking about the Grizzlies or Suns. T-Wolves probably not either. So this
is no disrespect to these teams. No. This is just the fact that in the NBA, unlike other professional sports, there's not as much parity.
These teams had no chance.
There was a lot of turnover and a lot of big name faces going to new teams this offseason, but still. It's not like you can have a team go from worst to first as easy as the NFL or Major League Baseball. So it's just you have to have stars to compete in the NBA. If you have stars on your team, a la LeBron James and Anthony Davis, you have a great chance of winning if you can stay healthy. If you're some of these teams like we just mentioned, the Bulls, who don't have one superstar. You're not going to be able to win consistently for 82 games in a season. It's just not going to happen.
No.
And so therefore, those teams are not going to be formidable most likely unless they make a trade. But for right now, October 21st, 2019, the day before the NBA regular season starts, we're not going to talk about those teams.
No, we're not. And that's for your sake because you don't want to hear us talk about teams that we don't care about and that have no meaning for the season at all. Let's get into it. Obviously, a lot of craziness in the offseason.
One of the most exciting,
I think the most, actually.
And most ridiculous offseasons we have ever seen as far as players leaving and going to different teams, joining forces with another superstar. The amount of turnover, it was ridiculous. I mean, talk about Adrian Wojnarowski, Woj bombs. It was literally every day for 2 weeks in a row. It was, this player's going here. Russell Westbrook is joining up with James Harden to play again. If the Lakers traded for Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George going to the Clippers. There's so many, right? And then there's other teams like the Utah Jazz and the Dallas Mavericks and the Denver Nuggets who didn't necessarily make huge trades to get a superstar, but their teams have so much depth.
Jazz did.
The Jazz did. The teams have so much depth that they're going to be formidable and they're going to be good even though they may not have a quote unquote bona fide superstar.
No, and when you look at this season, it's awesome if you're an NBA fan that was getting sick of the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers every single year.
Yeah, Cleveland will not be in it this year.
No, and they weren't in it last year either. But it's just, for the last, I would say 4 or 5 years, you've kind of known who was going to be in the finals. You had like an idea of like 2, 3, 4 teams. This year, I personally have legitimately 9 teams that I think could win the finals this year.
Wow.
And so that's from both divisions as well. So this is going to be a fun one. It's probably going to be our most fun prediction. The other thing was, I don't even think we did NBA predictions because it was so thought over that the Warriors were going to win.
We did, and we said, like, Warriors.
We just did it during the podcast. Like, we're just like,
we said,
this is going to be one of the segments where we used to do commercials and stuff like that. We used to have time of it. Like, hey, it's going to be segment NBA predictions at the end of this podcast, and we'll be talking about the NFL because that's more important because we all know the Warriors are going to win. So, yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. And, why don't we mix it up a little bit? Why don't we start in the East? Because I think the West is going to be so nuts. We'll actually save that for a little bit later. Let's start in the East. A lot less contenders here, but still some interesting storylines, some very solid teams still. And there's a lot more parity in the East in some ways because there's a lot of teams that could make it in to potentially even the finals that you would never really expect. So, like I said, we mentioned a lot of teams that we're probably not going to talk about. Teams we are going to talk about, though, are, Milwaukee Bucks, Philadelphia 76ers, Boston Celtics. We think those three teams are the kind of big three. They're going to be battling in the Eastern Conference against each other, Eastern Conference Finals, and potentially making the finals. What are your thoughts? Kind of, who do you think is the best team out of these three? Or do you think there's another team out there that has a chance to make the finals this year?
Hands down, Philadelphia 76ers. This is their year, right? After I just mentioned at the beginning of this, after all those years of tanking and those fans having to suffer through horrible teams and obviously knowing that the team was purposely trying to lose, this is the time when the team needs to strike, right? I will say that they lost J.J. Redick, who I think that was a little bit of an underrated loss by them. J.J. Redick, who's now with the New Orleans Pelicans. But J.J. Redick is a sharpshooter, right? He's a three-point specialist. And really, the 76ers didn't necessarily have one of those guys on their team for most of last year, right? We obviously know that Joel Embiid can shoot threes, but that's not his specialty. Ben Simmons, I believe he didn't make 1 3-pointer all of last year.
He made 3 in the preseason, though.
Yeah, and the crowd and everyone went nuts because they're telling him to shoot the ball.
Well, I mean, look at what they had to do.
They're telling him to shoot, and I'm glad you brought up Ben Simmons. The Philadelphia 76ers will make it to the NBA Finals if Ben Simmons gets any type of jump shot. I'm talking about mid-range, 3-pointer, because right now, when you're playing the Philadelphia 76ers and Ben Simmons, you're like 2 or 3 feet away from Ben Simmons. You're not getting up in his body because you want him to shoot the ball. You are forcing him to shoot. You're begging him to shoot the ball because he is so horrible.
You leave him wide open.
Right,
you remember like watching Draymond Green? They left him like wide open during the finals.
That's the defensive scheme. You let him shoot all day long, and if for some miracle of a reason he makes a 3, you live with it because he consistently will not do it. Yeah. So if Ben Simmons can get a jump shot, if that's something that he worked on in the offseason, which I know he did, the Philadelphia 76ers, albeit if they stay healthy, will make it to the NBA Finals. I think they are the most complete and most talented team on this roster. Oh, and let's not forget, they also poached Al Horford from the Boston Celtics. The Celtics were a very formidable team last year, and they will be this year as they got Kemba Walker in free agency. But the fact that Al Horford comes over, not only his leadership and experience, but the fact that the man can still play alongside Joel Embiid, the Sixers in the East right now have to be the team to beat.
I disagree. Here's my biggest thing. You've lost Jimmy Butler. And that to me, he's like that shooter you're talking about, that guy that can make the big shot. I don't trust Tobias Harris, who's on the Clippers. I don't trust Joel Embiid because he's a center. And I don't trust Ben Simmons because of what we just said. I think the best team in the East by far is the Milwaukee Bucks. They have potentially the best player in the NBA. They essentially didn't lose anybody but Malcolm Brogdon, but they signed Wesley Matthews. So I think that's
a downgrade.
It's a downgrade for sure, but that's the only good. They have the 2 Lopez brothers. They have the 2 Antetokounmpo brothers on their team. They
The
re-signed.
Lakers have one at Kemba.
No, I think he signed with. Maybe there's
No,
multiple.
the Lakers have one.
There's multiple. Yeah, there's 3 of them. I think there's like 5 of them.
Okay,
actually.
well, the Lakers have one. I
The
know
Lakers
that.
have one. Probably won't make the roster because they're like superstar team. But I do know there's 2 Greek freaks and there's 2 Lopez.
Lopez brothers.
Yeah, one of them is a lot better than the other. But yeah, and then they retain most of their very. So Chris Middleton's still there. George Hill they re-signed, and of course the mainstay, Giannis, who's just amazing. Won the MVP last year. I think he's a top 3 finalist again this year. And I think, but the fact that they lost to the Raptors, and they were so close to the final, I think that's why I'm going to go with them. And the 76ers have a great roster, a great team. I just think they downgrade a little too much. They add Horford, but I just think Jimmy Butler is like that go-to shooter man. Not to say that Philadelphia 76ers can't go out and like grab Bradley Beal potentially during the season, but for right now, looking at the rosters right now, I'm not going to go, well, if they add Bradley Beal, they're in the finals at this team, because obviously the Bucks could too. And then
that point is null and void because Bradley Beal just signed an extension with Washington, which keeps him there for 2 years.
2 years extension. That the Wizards are so bad. We just mentioned the Wizards. We weren't supposed to talk about the Wizards.
Sorry. You brought it up.
I brought Bradley Beal.
I'm just saying.
Okay, well, I'm just saying. So I think it's the Bucks. You think it's 76ers.
Listen,
I love that Eastern Conference Finals.
The reason why I like your Bucks pick is because you're right. The Bucks were so close to smelling the NBA Finals last year. They got so close. Obviously, Giannis, the MVP, we know that he's hungry, right? The guy and his entire family comes from absolutely nothing. I think he could win 10 NBA championships, and he will still continue to work like he hasn't won one championship, right? The guy is just, he is a dog mentality. He goes to work every single day. He purposely did not go and cast in Space Jam 2 with LeBron James because he said that would have interrupted 2 weeks of his training.
Love that. I love that.
Right? And he's like, I'm not going to go star in a movie and take 2 weeks of my training, even though I can take 2 months off and eat McDonald's every day and still look like a chiseled freak, right? The dude is so locked in and focused that I think he's on a mission this year to get his team over the hump and into the NBA Finals. So I like that pick, and I think that they're going to kind of use that chip on the shoulder mentality. I just think from an overall talent standpoint, if healthy, I think the 76ers just have a better roster.
Yeah, no. It's gonna, those are the 2 teams, to be honest, and that's why when I put this down, I put the Bucks and 76ers at the top because I knew, we're gonna jump right into it. We're gonna be like, these are the 2 teams. Now, I do want to go into this. And I want to talk about the Celtics as well because, they lost Kyrie Irving, which is big. They lost Al Horford, but they do gain Kemba Walker. Not as good as Kyrie, but a pretty good compliment.
Very good.
Like the best thing you probably could have done besides Kyrie. And they also added Enes Kanter, who had kind of a bounce back year with the Portland Trailblazers last year as well. So their starting lineup is still pretty damn good. Like you have Kemba, Tatum, Brown, who just signed an extension, Kanter, and Gordon Hayward, who's going to be healthier than ever. And then you also have Marcus Smart as a 6th man. So they still have a pretty good lineup. What do the Celtics have to do besides having a good lineup to beat the Bucks or 76ers? How can they reach the NBA Finals?
Stay healthy. Which the 76ers in years past, Kyrie Irving specifically, Tatum and Brown have had their injuries kind of throughout the year. Nothing serious, but they've missed spurts of the season. And I think that's what's kind of hindered the Boston Celtics throughout. They have to stay healthy because, listen, I don't think they're as talented of a team top to bottom as the Philadelphia 76ers or the Milwaukee Bucks. So any chance of them competing with those 2 teams that we just mentioned, they have to stay healthy. They have to be able to play as a team. Let's mention, you just mentioned the turnover. There are 2 leading scorers and 2 best players on the team, and Kyrie Irving and Al Horford are no longer there. So yes, you still have Tatum, you still have Brown, you still have Smart, but those guys are still very young coming into their 3rd and 4th seasons respectively. So are they the leaders of the team? Is Kemba Walker come in and be the leader? Is Enes Kanter? But I think I'm not sure about the identity of the Boston Celtics, and I think it's going to take some time for this team to kind of figure out who they really are. And I think they might get behind the 8 ball a little bit. So I like the Celtics. They're going to make the playoffs, but can they make a legitimate run against the 2 juggernauts? In our opinion, I'm not so sure. staying healthy will be a major key.
Yeah, obviously, and one of the reasons he's staying healthy is a good point to bring up because their bench is probably the worst it's been since Brad Stevens got there as well. So, they lost Terry Rozier along with losing Horford and Kyrie as well, and they also lose Aaron Baines too, who was a good guy off the bench. So, they lost a lot. So not only have they lost starters in the lineup, they've lost bench guys. Overall, the roster's just not as good, so they kind of have to play perfect. I think their best way to get it is just by playing stout defense, right? That create a defensive identity, kind of like the Chicago Bulls in the last couple when they had Tom Thibodeau and some of these other defensive specialist teams. Your roster isn't good, so just play solid defense and don't expose yourself as much on offense. Right?
Potentially, I don't know, the answer for the Celtics team because I don't know what their identity is. Right, who's going to be their go-to
and
guy?
Kemba Walker is like not. The Charlotte Hornets never got anywhere with him as their best player.
No, they didn't. Kemba Walker has kind of evolved his jump shot and gotten a lot better since he came out of UConn. But I wouldn't call him a shooter by any stretch of the imagination. I would say Jason Tatum's probably their best player, but is he their go-to guy in a critical situation with 2 seconds left?
He's proven not to be too.
Right. So who is their go-to scorer? Right. When you look at the Bucks, it's obviously Giannis. When you look at the 76ers, you're probably going to give it to Embiid. So like I said, I think it's going to take time for the Sixers team to kind of gel and figure out who they are. And I think that will immediately put them behind the 8 ball. Not to say that they can't come back and go on a run, but it will take a little time.
Yeah, no. But clear top 2 teams, the Bucks, 76ers. Celtics were kind of put in there.
They're hovering.
Exactly, they're hovering. I think here's 3 other interesting teams to me: the Nets, the Raptors, and the Heat. Now these rosters are definitely not as good as those first 3 you mentioned, but they're still very solid. I'll start with the Heat. They add Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler is a proven star, a proven defensive star. Overall, that roster in itself is a lot better than it has been the last couple of years. Great coach in Eric Spoelstra as well. Moving on to the Raptors, essentially all they lost was Kawhi. So I know that's huge.
A big deal.
But what I'm saying is they still have a very solid roster. They have a lot of guys at the end of their contracts. Maybe they'll play their asses
Not
off.
Siakam, he got paid.
Siakam got paid the other day. And also,
rightfully so.
Celtics just paid Jalen Brown
right
as well. So a couple guys kind of a little, to help them out, maybe clear their mind going into the season. But so the Raptors, they still have Kyle Lowry, OG Anunoby, I think that's how you say his last name. Obviously Siakam, and they still have Gasol. They add Stanley Johnson, Hollis Jefferson to show up their defense as well. So that team, those 2 guys were actually used to be teammates at the University of Arizona as well. But that roster's still good. And then, of course, the Nets. Big headlines that won't translate directly this year. They obviously acquired Kevin Durant, but he won't play, so we're not even going to talk about him. But they get Kyrie, which is huge. Kyrie chose the Brooklyn Nets. He didn't choose the Boston Celtics when the Cavaliers traded him away. So this might be a little different. He might have a better attitude. They also add DeAndre Jordan, Garrett Temple, Teron Prince. They just signed an extension today as well. They do lose D'Angelo Russell, but D'Angelo Russell, Kyrie, that's not really a loss, right? So those 3 teams, where do you see those 3 teams? Like, do they have any of them have a legitimate chance to go to the finals? Can the Raptors actually defend their title this year, or do you just think these rosters are done?
Listen, I still like the Raptors a lot. Obviously, we all know what losing Kawhi is. I don't need to sit here and break that down for you.
Won a championship for him. Yeah,
I think the Raptors still are still a great defensive team, and I think their defense leads to their offense. Siakam will, I think, be their go-to offensive player now. So I would put the Raptors probably as that number 4 team in the East. Listen, the Heat and the Nets have Kyrie, but Kyrie has proven that he can't win by himself, right? And especially, I think, whether it's him just being healthy, because I don't know if he's ever played a full 82-game season in his entire career, even going back to when he was with Cleveland and LeBron James. So from that standpoint, the fact that you obviously don't have Kevin Durant for the year, DeAndre Jordan, to me, is an alley-oop guy. Yeah, he can do some things on the defensive side of the ball, but from an offensive standpoint, you can't really expect him to give you much of anything points-wise. So this is really going to be on Kyrie. We're going to see if Kyrie can kind of, turn the tables and lead from not only an offensive standpoint, from a whole team standpoint, because so far I don't trust that. And then with the Heat, yes, Jimmy Butler is great. I think Jimmy Butler to me is in the same conversation as Kyrie Irving, to where I think they're great players, but I don't think their greatness individually lifts the rest of their team up to elevate them to elite status. So I think Jimmy Butler is a great get for the Miami Heat, but as a whole, I don't think that's going to be enough to go up against the top two teams in the East or even some of the teams in the West. So I think those are kind of, semi-hovering middle of the pack teams that, yeah, they can go on some runs and they might look good, and they will make the playoffs as well, because the East is not as stacked as the West.
For sure, yeah.
But I think these teams in the end are going to cancel each other out, and they're not going to be formidable when it comes to the Bucks or the 76ers.
Yeah, and like I said, we picked the 76ers and Bucks. I do think no matter what, really, those will be the two Eastern Conference teams. At that point, I don't really know. But, I do think they'll end up 1-2.
I do want to preface this by saying that the NBA, when it comes to their trade deadline, the NBA is notorious for, blockbuster trades. And if a team is on the rise heading into the All-Star break or right after the All-Star break, they will make a big move for a player. So if those teams that we just talked about, the Nets, the Raptors, or the Heat, if they're trending upward and, they're like, hey, we're in a position to strike,
True.
Maybe they go out and get a sharpshooter. Maybe they go out and get another stud to add to their team to become a triple threat or something like that.
No,
you know what I mean? So
exactly.
I think we have to, even though this is an NBA prediction show and obviously the season hasn't started, on these three specific teams, we need to kind of wait and see where they are. Because like I said, if they're trending in the right direction, then I wouldn't be surprised if they make a big splash to kind of go all in on this year.
I'll say this. The Nets, I don't think will do that because they have the best
Right.
player in the NBA.
Right.
And they don't need to win this year, and I think their fans are okay with that. The Raptors, though, this is kind of like it. I know they re-signed Kyle Lowry, but Gasol's going to be probably gone after this season. A lot of their other notable bench players, Ibaka as well, is on this team. They'll probably be gone, so they're going to kind of start a little rebuild there in Toronto in the next couple of years. So I think that's definitely a team you got to look out for to get an acquisition. And then the Heat have been linked to Bradley Beal, the guy I just mentioned, the whole offseason. People just assumed he'd join the Miami Heat. So that's another. It's a very good point you brought up, because even though we're talking about them as non-contenders, in the blink of an eye, they can become contenders like a lot of teams did this offseason.
Exactly.
Three more teams I at least had making the playoffs, and we're not going to extend on them too much, was the Pistons, Pacers, and potentially the Magic. Do you have any other teams, or do you just think these are just kind of bottom of the barrel teams that probably lose to the Bucks?
Yeah, no, listen, these teams will get into the playoffs because each conference has to have 8 teams, right? So
stupid
there will be, the Pacers are all right. Victor Oladipo is a very good player for them. Obviously, he wasn't able to finish last year because of an injury, but he's kind of turning into a star himself, right? And the Pacers are a very defensive-minded team. So like you mentioned back, a few years back with Tom Thibodeau and the Bulls were able to be competitive because of their defense, not necessarily their offense. So I think the Pacers will be in the mix because of that. But from an offensive standpoint, they definitely don't have the firepower to keep up with some of these other top teams. Everyone else, unfortunately, it's kind of just filling out the playoffs, and I think they will be one and dones. So no disrespect to them, but like I said at the beginning of this, you have to have stars to win in this league. And if you do not have bona fide stars that can carry your team on a night in, night out basis, you will not make it far. Yes, you may be able to make it into the playoffs and squeeze in the 7th or 8th seed, but you will not go up against these behemoths who have, Giannis and who have Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons and all these superstars. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, it's going to be tough. I think the Pistons have the best roster out of those three. The thing about Oladipo is still going to miss some time at the beginning of the season recovering from his injury as well. So that team, they're going to lose some games in the beginning, not having a full roster. The Pistons do have a full roster, but Blake Griffin's always hurt. Drummond's not really a world.
I actually want to give some credit to Blake Griffin. Last year in the playoffs, Blake Griffin played his heart out. Everyone knew that he was injured, and he was probably at 70%, but he still had a gigantic knee brace on him, going out there every night, fighting for his teammates. He got pulled out of the game towards, I believe, their elimination game, and the entire everyone in the crowd stood up and gave him a standing ovation. knowing that he was nowhere close to 100%, but yet he was out fighting for his team. He showed a lot of guts and heart. Not to say that he didn't do that when he was with the Clippers in Lob City, but I think you saw a different side of Blake Griffin that was like, hey, this guy's a real team player. So I think that kind of doesn't get overshadowed. And for the Pistons, they're going to look to him to be their leader this year.
No, for sure. And he's a good comedian. He did his roast at the roast of.
I didn't hear that. I didn't know that.
He did the
Really?
He did the roast of Alec Baldwin.
Oh,
And
okay.
he had some good jokes.
Really?
Yeah. And so it was.
Okay.
You know,
I'll have to check that out.
It was probably good that he's away from LA now too, being connected with certain celebrities and stuff like that. Kind of takes it away from the game a little bit, and LA is just it's a melting pot of a lot of weird people here, and especially the celebrities being amongst the weirdest. So I think him playing in Detroit has created that kind of attitude in him. I think when he was with the Clippers, he could become a little complacent. Chris Paul was a better player. You could kind of lean on him a little bit, but yeah, no, Blake Griffin is kind of the face of the Pistons right now. Hopefully, I mean, I hope they make the playoffs. I'm a big Blake Griffin guy. I loved him as a Clipper, and unfortunately, it didn't work out for him. But
Right.
when he was traded, it was disappointing. But it ended up working out for us. I think we got Patrick Beverly out of the deal and all that stuff. No, that was Chris Paul.
Clippers are okay. All right.
Yeah. Well,
All right.
speaking of the Clippers and speaking of the West, we're gonna move to the West, and this conference is insane, Jared. I have 10 legitimate playoff contenders marked down here. I do not know the 8 teams that are going to be in the playoffs. I do know there are favorites, but like that's not one of my favorites. But,
I'm just saying.
But let's jump in this. I don't even know where to start with this. I mean, you obviously have the Lakers combining LeBron and Anthony Davis, which has been rumored for like 2 years to be happening. They have a lot of complement bench players on that team as well. Unfortunately, they lose DeMarcus Cousins, so they essentially didn't even add him. So it's like they lost him to free agency. Kyle Kuzma will not start the season as well. I don't think he'll miss too many games, but he's missing a little bit at the beginning. Then you move the other team in LA, who's shocked the world. Kawhi, Paul George coming over. They also keep Patrick Beverly, Montrezl Harrell, and so like this team, that team is great. They also kept a lot of their bench together. The Warriors, they do lose Durant, Iguodala, and Livingston, but they add D'Angelo Russell, and they still have Steph and Draymond, but they're also missing Klay Thompson. The Rockets, switched Chris Paul with Russell Westbrook, which I think is a nice addition instead of a bad addition for them, at least in my opinion. The Nuggets are staying intact and even added Jeremy Grant. The Jazz added Mike Conley. Like, this is insane. Like, how did this all happen in one conference?
Keep going.
The Spurs get Dejounte Murray back.
The Spurs are still the Spurs.
They combined DeMar Rosen and LaMarcus Aldridge still. They also obviously have the legendary coach Greg Popovich. Excuse me, I'm losing my breath talking about all this. Blazers are still the Blazers.
Keep going.
The Kings add Trevor Ariza. The Mavs, like we mentioned, Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis
finally
combine. And then, unfortunately, Zion's out for the first 2 months, which we just found out today. That could have been another playoff team, but I think Zion not being there, I think we're going to kind of toss them to the side. They essentially are a poor man's Lakers from last year.
Got a lot of Lakers up.
A little bit worse, yeah. Although Lonzo's jump shot looks a lot better. Credit to him, he's getting away from his father. There was obviously some weird stuff that went down with him and his family in the offseason. He got money stolen from him. He's arguing with his dad on the Facebook show about changing the company's logo. He said he had to change his shoes like every half or something like that.
Family drama.
Yeah, so again, another guy, get him away from LA.
Right.
Stick him in New Orleans where nobody cares.
Give him a fresh start.
Yeah, he goes on with Josh Hart and Brendan Ingram as well. So, I think personally, Jared, there are 6 legitimate contenders for the NBA Finals this year.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
It's extremely hard for me to pick, so I went bias. I think you went bias too, because we don't know who to pick. But let's just analyze these teams, because I want to be fair with it, and maybe I'll change my mind, to be honest, if I start thinking about teams a little bit. But let's start with our Lakers and Clippers. This is, we follow these teams every single day. I follow the Lakers as well, although I am more of a Clipper fan. I've kind of put myself in that package. Most of my friends consider me the Clipper guy out of the group, so I have to embrace it now. You guys know me. I have my fake Chris Paul jersey that I wear, and I will probably be trying to get a, maybe a Patrick Beverly jersey. Oh, piss some people off, right? But let's start with your Lakers. I think you talk about the best player in the world. You're talking about LeBron James, 15th season, age 35. No, excuse me, 17th season. Isn't that insane?
17.
LeBron's been around for 17 years. It does not feel like that.
Unreal.
It's been in the finals 8 times, right?
I believe so.
It's just
Unreal.
Insane. It's just insane. But so, like we mentioned, they lost DeMarcus Cousins before the season even started. That was supposed to be one of the big additions to their lineup to kind of combat the Warriors and Clippers and all these other teams we're talking about. But what do you see from this dynamic of LeBron and Anthony Davis? Because that's really all that matters with this team. You can have all the complementary bench players, but if the stars get hurt, kind of sucks. So what do you see LeBron and Anthony Davis doing this season?
I see size, strength, athleticism, grown men who understand what they have in each other. And listen, when LeBron James came over in free agency from Cleveland last year, LA obviously was very excited to bring LeBron on, but at the time when Magic Johnson was still the GM, the Lakers were not able to pair another superstar with LeBron. So it was basically LeBron by himself. And up until close to the All-Star break, or it was close to Christmas, the Lakers were the third, kind of hovering between the third and fourth seed in the West. Unfortunately, LeBron James goes down with an injury. He's out for multiple games, and the Lakers kind of teetered down, unfortunately, from there, and were never able to kind of regain that momentum that they had, and they ended up missing the playoffs, which, looking back on it now, for LeBron James, I think was a blessing in disguise. LeBron James had been to, I believe, was 5 or 6 straight NBA Finals.
Well,
which
not
means
to mention before that he was in. He was making. Oh no, you're right. It was 8 finals in a row.
Right. But so he played
Still making playoffs
just from a playoff perspective in those multiple years of making it to the finals. He played like another full NBA season.
Yeah.
Right, and then
and before all the finals too, he was still making the playoffs. For the
right,
Cavs.
and he'd been on the Olympic team as well.
Yeah.
So basically, what we're trying to say is there's a lot of miles on those feet and those legs for LeBron James, and the fact that he was able to get away from basketball a little bit, completely rest and rehab and get himself ready. And you know what? I think also LeBron has a chip on his shoulder, right? Even though I'm sure he would have loved to be in the playoffs last year, he doesn't like missing the playoffs, right? That's not I'm going to miss the playoffs because I need to rest. No, LeBron is here to win. So the fact that he did not make the playoffs and the fact that they got Anthony Davis, I think LeBron has a chip on his shoulder, not only because everyone expects the Lakers to make it far and more than likely to the NBA Finals, but for himself to say, hey, I'm in my 17th year, I've still got it, right? I can still, LeBron James, by the way, for those who don't know, is the starting point guard for the Lakers this year. Yes, I said that correctly. Point guard, the last big man to be the point guard for the Lakers in this type of situation was Magic Johnson, and the Lakers ended up winning multiple NBA championships with Magic Johnson. So I think the Lakers, if they stay healthy, of course, with the pairing of LeBron James and Anthony Davis, have a legitimate chance to make it because they're unguardable. LeBron James, when he wants to get to the basket, he uses his size and strength and ability to get wherever he wants, and he gets and ones like no other. Anthony Davis is basically like Giannis, where he can do whatever he wants. He can shoot the three. He can post you up. He can run you over, right? He doesn't even have to jump, and he's basically at the rim. His God-given ability is unlike almost anything we have seen since he came out of Kentucky. So to pair those two guys together, I think the most important thing about this pairing is that they're unselfish. They don't have to go out and get 30, 40 points a night and fill up the scoreboard to make themselves feel good. These guys want to get their teammates involved. They understand that they're the face of this NBA, of this Lakers team, but when they get their teammates involved, it makes them look better. So I think because they're so unselfish, I think that's going to keep everyone else kind of engaged, right? We go back to the days of the Lakers with kind of Kobe after he lost Shaq. It was the Kobe show, right? And even though the Lakers ended up winning 2 NBA championships, at points during the season and at points during games, you saw guys that just weren't engaged because you knew that Kobe wasn't going to pass
Well,
the
there
ball.
was years too that they didn't make the playoffs.
Right, and it's because Kobe was going to shoot no matter what. You were going to live and die by Kobe. With this team, you have so many unselfish guys who are your stars. Your other guys are going to be engaged, and you're going to keep them motivated. So I think this team is well-rounded. I think they have the size to go up against anyone. I know it was just preseason, but last week when they went up against the Golden State Warriors, they completely demolished them. They made the Warriors look like a little kind of JV, like Pop Warner 5th grade team. That's just what it was. Like I said, it was a preseason. It doesn't count towards the win column. But the Lakers, their size is going to be a problem for every other team in the NBA. That was a lot right there. I can't
even say. I mean, you pretty much presented everything that's possible there. This team is going to be legit. They're going to make the playoffs, obviously. They're going to be a top 4 or 5 seed. Like they're going to be one of the best teams in the NBA, let alone the West.
I want to cut you off really quick. I know there's some people who are listening to this right now and saying, "Oh, Jared, you're just a homer. Your Lakers haven't won in a while. You're so excited you can't think about anything else." I'll give you a nugget, and I think something that the Lakers missed this offseason. Obviously, they got Anthony Davis, which was a huge get. They didn't get like a sharpshooter three-pointer. I wish they could have got a J.J. Redick or someone like that.
Danny Green? He's not a sharpshooter, but he's...
No, he is good, but and Danny Green has veteran experience. I think the Lakers, don't be surprised if they go out and look at a J.J. Redick or look at a sharpshooter. If you look back at LeBron James, when he won championships, the years that they won, he had Ray Allen, he had sharpshooters on his team, guys that can just knock down threes, right? LeBron can make threes, but he is a facilitator, and he needs guys to knock down those open shots because LeBron's going to get double-teamed, because Anthony Davis is going to get double-teamed. So as other guys start making shots, it's going to make it that much tougher on defense.
They definitely have better shooting than they have the last couple of years, though.
Right.
Which is better, but it's good that you brought up kind of the weakness there. I'm going to talk about the other LA team. That's the Clippers. This team, roster-wise, is just as good as the Lakers. They get Kawhi and Paul George. Paul George will miss the beginning of the season. Probably will be back late November, early December, somewhere in that range. So not missing too much. But this roster is still amazing without him. I mean, even if you hadn't got Paul George, I think you would have been talking about the Clippers being one of the better teams in the NBA because of the addition of Kawhi and because of what we saw him do with the Raptors last year. They keep Patrick Beverley, who's their starting point guard. He's not a ball handler guy, but defensively, he's one of the best defenders in the league as far as a small guy. Really can guard anybody.
He's a pest.
Regardless of his size. Maybe can't guard Anthony Davis, but still, I mean, he's the guy going on LeBron.
Right.
Like when the Clippers play him. Montrezl Harrell really made another step up. Was essentially the 7th man in the NBA. Would have won 6th man if it weren't for Lou Williams, who is the 6th man for the Clippers, who's also on this roster still. The only people they lost were Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who was a very promising point guard, but I'll take Kawhi over Shai Gilgeous, and Danilo Gallinari, who essentially was a salary dump. So this team is like, if they keep Landry Shamet, who is a knockdown shooter, that's something that the Clippers definitely have an advantage over. Paul George, also a very good shooter himself, not a knockdown shooter, but a guy that can score 40 points.
He can make threes.
He's a guy that can score 40 points, and Lou Williams as well. A guy gets fouled, gets to the line. This team is gritty. I think they have a better coach in Doc Rivers, the Lakers as well. So everything is planned for the Clippers to win the championship this year, to be honest. And then when the Lakers got, when the Lakers did all the stuff with Anthony Davis, it was like, we're going to have the LA Wars, and I cannot wait. But I'm just, the roster is still there. It's the Clippers from last year that beat the full-strength Warriors, by the way, twice last year in the playoffs. Nobody else was able to do that. Not the Rockets, not the Trailblazers, and Toronto beat a beaten-down team when they got to the finals. So essentially, the Clippers were one of the best teams in the playoffs last year, even though they didn't make it past the first round. So essentially, that team, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard added to it.
It's pretty scary.
It's pretty scary. But I'm not going to extend the Clippers because we have gone a little long with the LA teams. The Lakers and Clippers both legitimately have chances to win the NBA Finals, to make it to the NBA Finals. We're not going to make predictions yet, we're going to examine. There's 4 other teams that I want to talk about kind of quickly. The Warriors. I just mentioned the Warriors a second ago. They lost a lot. But with the philosophy of Steve Kerr, Steph Curry still being an MVP type player,
Right.
Draymond being a facilitator, D'Angelo Russell being able to score, and then eventually getting Klay Thompson back, this team will make the playoffs. Adding essentially Klay Thompson at the deadline is huge. Does this team have a chance to make it back to the finals?
They do, because of their veteran presence and their experience. Now, from a talent standpoint on paper today, do I see them making the playoffs? No.
So you don't even see them making the playoffs.
Or I'm sorry, the finals.
I was going to say,
they will make the playoffs. This comes down to, when does Klay Thompson come back? Obviously, he got injured late in the postseason, in the playoffs last year, so that, takes away most of his season this year. And if and when they get to the playoffs, or maybe right before that, you can see him coming back, but those are tricky, and it depends on how much damage was done to his actual knee as well. So if they get that sharpshooter back, then yes, I think they can make a run for it, because you still have Draymond, you still have Steph, and you add D'Angelo Russell, who I think can be a nice kind of complementary piece if he's willing to take a step back and say, I'm okay with not being the guy. He's a little kind of hard-headed. No, he's not.
Yeah.
But he has to get out of his own head and say, I'm coming onto a team that's a championship caliber team, right? And I think when he was with the Lakers and even with the Nets a little bit, you saw kind of a bullish type of guy who wanted to be in the spotlight. Well, guess what? You're in the spotlight now. You're just not necessarily the star player. So if he can take a step back and adjust his game to play off of Steph Curry, I think he can have success with this team. Steph Curry was asked in a press conference a couple days ago, how many minutes are you planning on playing this season per game, knowing that you don't have KD, you don't have Klay, it's going to be you and Draymond. And he said 48 minutes for 82 games. So Steph has the mindset of awesome. A dog and a warrior that says, hey, I'm putting this team on my shoulders, even though he may be one of the smallest players in the NBA. And he's saying, ride with me. So you can't take out of consideration this team. They're going to make it to the playoffs. And like I said, we get one of the best shooters back, or they get one of the best shooters back in Klay Thompson at some point. And, you can't count those guys out.
Their roster besides the stars is horrible.
Right. It's full of a bunch of young guys.
But this team was literally a dynasty the last 4 or 5 years. There's no way that mentality just disappears into being
not at all. Not at all. They're looking at this as another challenge that they're going to overcome.
Yeah. Now they do have to. The unfortunate thing for them is they do have to play the Lakers and Clippers
because they're in the same
8
division.
times this season,
right?
Which is potentially quite a few extra losses that you normally wouldn't have. But I still think they can beat the Rockets. I still think they can beat the Nuggets, and they can still beat the Lakers and Clippers. They just won't dominate them like they have the last couple of years. So, and even the Kings are a little bit better as well. We'll talk about the Kings a little bit later. 2 other teams that I want to talk about that are kind of small market teams that have great rosters, but not a lot of huge stars are the Denver Nuggets and the Jazz. The Jazz, obviously, they add Mike Conley. They add Bojan Bogdanovic.
Ooh, there you go.
Bogdanovic is the league. Super confusing.
There you go.
They added sharpshooter, and they add that to a team that already had Donovan Mitchell, a budding star, and Rudy Gobert, a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. So, very good roster. The Nuggets, obviously led by Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. Very solid complement of players around them as well. But can these 2 teams, with those rosters that in the Eastern Conference, we might be saying are the best teams in the East, can they truly compete with the Clippers, the Lakers, the Warriors, and the Rockets, who we're going to talk about? Can they truly compete with those teams?
No doubt.
To the finals?
No doubt. I have no doubt in my mind, because of what we've seen from these 2 teams in the last couple of years, the way that these teams have been created and made through the draft. They're both tough. They're both gritty. Like you mentioned, they don't have the superstars. There's no LeBron James or Steph Curry on these teams, but they've played together. They have experience together. And the fact that I think they're kind of defensive-minded teams that have shooters that can make big shots, right? We've seen them make big shots in the regular season and in the postseason. I think both of these teams are coming in very confident. They're not coming in looking like, oh, we're one of the bottom teams in the West or one of the middle of the pack. They're both coming in saying, hey, we can compete with the top dogs. I don't think either of these two teams are going to back down at all. They can be 4th seed, 5th seed, 6th seed, kind of right there in the middle, even 3rd seed potentially. I think it's going to be a tough out for both of these teams. And as a Lakers fan, I would not want to face either of these two teams, the Jazz or the Nuggets, in the first round of the playoffs.
No, I completely agree with you. These rosters are full of great talent.
And just a lot of depth.
Yeah, no, and that's the biggest, and that's why these teams are where they are, because of their depth. If they just had those stars, they would be, 8, 7, 9 seed, stuff like that. I mean, I can see these teams just based on the load management that might happen during the season and some players missing. I actually could even see the Jazz Nuggets being 1-2 in the West, just because other teams might not win earlier in the season. These teams, so that's what I'm saying. There's 6 teams, and we're going to talk about the last one because I think it's the most interesting one out of all of these teams. But there's 6 teams here in the West that have a legitimate chance at making the NBA Finals. The last team I want to talk about as a legitimate contender is the Houston Rockets. Now, there's been a lot of outside controversy during the offseason.
Which we will not get into right now.
No, we will not get into it. Mike D'Antoni, obviously, contract extension talks were weird, but he finally got extended. Obviously, Daryl Morey in the China situation, we're not going to get into, but that's been a little,
a hiccup.
A hiccup. But the biggest thing about this team, they don't lose much. They add Russell Westbrook in favor of Chris Paul. I think with Russell Westbrook in this team, you're getting a healthier star player.
Younger.
And you're getting a hungrier, potentially, star player, Russell Westbrook. I know Chris Paul hasn't won the finals, but I mean, we see it literally on his face through games. Russell Westbrook wants to win and wants to beat down the other team every single night. Combining, getting back with James Harden like they did back in the Thunder days. Switched a little bit. James Harden's the better player.
Right.
And I think Russell Westbrook needs to understand that James Harden is the guy on this team. And if they can complement each other, they're potentially, we talk about all these duos, that's potentially the best one. Harden and Russell Westbrook. That's like the last two like MVP candidates like in one. Those guys are averaging like 40 points a game. So this team, they didn't lose much. They keep the same coach. They keep the same philosophy. I think this team can be 1 seed. I think it's another team that is right there. Potentially finals or bust for this team a little bit. But I think they're right up there with the Lakers and Clippers, Warriors, and all these other teams.
This will probably be the only time on this show today that Nick and I disagree.
Well, we disagreed on the Bucks in 76.
Okay, that's right.
I'm super surprised we disagreed, but I'm glad I left this
Strongly disagree. Not just disagree. Strongly disagree. Who's their head coach?
It's Mike D'Antoni.
What's he done in his career? Has he ever made it to the finals?
No, he's made it to the Eastern Conference Finals
All
quite
right.
a bit with the Suns. And
All right.
He's made it to the
Has
Western.
his 7-second offense ever won in the postseason?
No.
No. Okay.
Well, it's won in the postseason, but has not made it to the finals.
To the finals. Okay, I need to clarify that and be a little more specific. Thank you very much. James Harden, would you describe him as more of a one-on-one guy, that he can get his own shot anytime? Or is he a facilitator, a LeBron James, the type of guy that likes to get his teammates involved and, he doesn't necessarily care about scoring?
To be honest, I would have said he's more of a kind of selfish one-on-one player 2-3 years ago. I do think he's become a better facilitator, but no, he's more of a scorer. He's more one-on-one.
Okay. Russell Westbrook, we know he's a walking
One-on-one
triple-double.
player.
He is a one-on-one player.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have 2 of the best players on the team who are one-on-one players who are both bullheaded
Yes.
that want to score. Obviously, one of them can score from anywhere in the court. Russell Westbrook has a horrible jump shot, but we know with his athleticism, he can get to the rim anytime he wants. They, at some point, will butt heads, maybe not necessarily an argument, but I think from the way that they play, I don't think that they necessarily will fit each other's schemes. And I don't see this as like a match made in heaven, maybe like you do. I think they are going to make it to the playoffs because they're both talented enough to get their teams there. But from a gelling standpoint, so like some of these other teams like the Lakers and the Clippers and the Jazz, right? I don't see them gelling like some of these other teams. They live and die by the 3. There's going to be nights where they hit 23s and they look like the best thing since sliced bread. There's going to be other nights where Russell Westbrook goes 0 for 30. James Harden scores 40 points and they lose by 20.
Yeah.
It's going to be too much of a roller coaster, in my opinion. As long as D'Antoni is there, yeah, they're going to look good in the regular season. Postseason's going to come. They're going to make it to the 2nd or the 3rd round, and they're going to collapse like they always do. The Houston
I
Rockets.
have to disagree.
The Houston Rockets will not sniff the NBA Finals this year.
Wow.
You heard it
You
first.
said they might make it to the third round. That's sniffing it. Here's the thing.
I misspoke.
I do think these are the two hungriest players, maybe behind Giannis, in the NBA.
I don't disagree with that.
Okay, but I do think that here's my prediction. My prediction is they are going to become unselfish this year. They're going to buy completely into each
They're
other.
going to become unselfish.
And I do think that if it's not the Lakers or Clippers, the Rockets are going to be in the finals. I guess
Over the Clippers?
I'm saying
If it's not the Lakers.
not the Lakers Clippers. Yes, which is kind of giving away somewhat of my prediction here. But if it's not the Lakers or Clippers, I think the Rockets are that third team. They're going to sneak in there and they're going to make the finals for the first time ever in the D'Antoni run offense.
I think
That's
we
my
need to
prediction.
put a bet on this because
We
I
might
am
need to.
so
That and the Bucks
anti-Rockets.
and 76ers we could, but I think this is more.
This
it's more
one is
personal to
more.
your heart.
You know what? It is just because I'm sorry, man. I'm tired of the one-on-one basketball. Kobe Bryant, one of the best of all time,
Yes.
the GOAT, came out and said in an interview last year, the one-on-one basketball that the Houston Rockets play, and specifically James Harden, will not lead to a championship. You can win games with it in the regular season, and you can look great, but eventually,
The league is
in
changing.
the postseason, when the game slows down and it becomes a more defensive-minded game, you're not going to have all the fast breaks like you normally do. Teams are going to be able to get more of an idea of how to defend you. And I'm sorry, it doesn't work. We've seen it time and time over and over again. Russell Westbrook is not a guy that can come in and just shoot when he wants to, right? He has to be able to get to the bucket and create. So it's not like James Harden can just pass it off to him and say, hey, go make 5-6 threes in the game. That's not going to happen. I don't see this team gelling. I think they're going to collapse like they always do. And like I said, they're going to look good. And then postseason is going to come and it's going to be like, oh, wait a minute. Where's the fast break? Where's the 7-second offense, right? It's not going to happen.
Here's the thing, and I'm going to
Prove me wrong.
I'm going to get some heat.
Prove me
saying
wrong.
this.
Prove me wrong. Houston
Kobe
Rockets.
Bryant is wrong. The league has changed. Kobe Bryant's not in the league anymore.
I'm about
okay?
to kick you off of this show right now for saying that Kobe Bryant is wrong.
Kobe's wrong. Jared's jersey mate right here. He's wrong. The Rockets are going to be a force. They will make it to at least the Western Conference Finals this year. At least. At least.
Here's the thing, though. That's not, that's not good enough for them. They've already done that.
No, but so I'm giving a hint that I don't think one of the Lakers or Clippers will be
Well, better be the Clippers.
in the Western Conference Finals. But we disagree. I didn't think you disagree that much, but I'm glad I left them as the last legitimate contender. Now we're running out of time. Other teams I at least see as contenders are the Spurs, Blazers, Kings, and Mavs.
Oh my gosh. All of those teams can, they go on a run,
Yeah.
and you never know.
No, and unfortunately we can't go over them as much just because the teams in the West at the top are just so top heavy. Spurs have, like we said, DeRozan, Aldridge, Dejounte Murray, young stud, and of course Greg Popovich.
Popovich is still there. They're going to be
Tim
good.
Duncan is an assistant coach as well. That might make a difference. Blazers, super close to kind of turn that edge.
Lillard and McCollum.
And they're bought in
McCollum.
too. They're not leaving. They do lose a bit on their roster, but they do get Nurkic back as kind of an addition. So they're interesting. Mavs, like we mentioned, Doncic, Porzingis. We don't know what we're going to see from them. They could be horrible. They could be great.
Two young stars, though. If they come together, the Mavs can be.
And like you're saying, all these teams, 7-8 seeds. None of these teams, I think, are getting slipped in unless there's major star injuries to one of these other top teams that we mentioned. My interesting team is, though, the Kings. Young, hungry, haven't been in the playoffs since when? 03? Right? I think the longest drought in the NBA.
Sure.
De'Aaron Fox, budding star.
Star.
Marvin Bagley III, budding star. Harrison Barnes.
A nice veteran piece who's won a championship before, knows he knows what it takes to get to the finals.
Buddy Hield just
signed a huge contract. I love Buddy Hield coming out of Oklahoma. One of the last real guys to stay for 4 years, his senior year, and then come out.
And that's why he won the money, because he's in his mid-20s already. Like, he's older. A lot of people think, he's in the year. No, he was like 22, 23.
For an NBA star, yes, he is older. Most guys come out after their freshman year. Buddy Hield stayed all 4 years, which is almost unheard of in today's college athletics. at least for basketball, when you know that you're going to make it to the NBA. A lot of guys jump ship right away.
Exactly. They also have Bogdan Bogdanovic, Trevor Ariza. They added to this roster as well. Kyle Guy, Harry Giles III, just to name a couple others as well.
Luke Walton is their new head coach now, coming over from the Lakers.
Corey Joseph
young,
from
he
Spurs.
can kind of relate to those guys because they're so young. So that's another team you can't sleep on. They're in the West Division with the Lakers as well in the Pacific Division. So
that's the only thing I think that will bite them in the butt.
It will, but those aren't. But for the Lakers and the Clippers and the Warriors, those aren't going to be just kind of gimme games. No. Those are going to be very tough games. So on nights when some guys are like, hey, I need a night, like we need our other guys to step up. LeBron James and Kawhi and Steph, they can't just say, oh, we're going to take this game easy, because those teams, that team that we just mentioned, the Kings, they're going to be hungry and they're coming for blood.
No, and the Kings, Warriors, Clippers, and Lakers all get 16 free wins to start the season because they play the Phoenix Suns. So there you go, Kings. You get a couple extra wins because you play the Suns, and the Suns are still awful. And that's why we're not talking about them. But yeah, so those are kind of that's we got to wrap up the NBA predictions. But wow, it is an open season this year. I'm glad that we actually got to do this because there was so much to talk about. And I think now we just need to finish with a quick MVP pick. Who do you think wins MVP this year? Who do you think kind of steps up as that next real big superstar?
This one is, listen, because there's so many kind of star tandems. I mean, I could see Giannis winning back-to-back.
I haven't winning.
I can see Steph Curry winning just because he's going to have such of a load. He's going to be carrying so much of the offense that I think his numbers can be astronomical. I can see James Harden winning. I can see LeBron winning.
I can see Jokic winning.
Right. I mean, this is so tough. If I had to pick one right now, oh my gosh. I'm gonna go Steph Curry. Listen.
That was my number two.
I think his numbers are gonna be so crazy just because he's going to have to take more shots, and we all know the lethal shooter that he is. He might have some off nights, but from a consistent, game in, game out standpoint, I think Steph Curry is gonna put up numbers that we just haven't seen in this decade.
Yeah, if it's not Giannis, who I think it is, Giannis being super hungry and being kind of the only real true superstar on that team, although they have a lot of talent, I think he'll step up. But Steph Curry is another great guess. So my MVP is Giannis. Rookie of the year. Zion misses 2 months, so maybe not him, who I think a lot of people would have picked. Who do you have as Rookie of the year?
Zion Williamson.
You still saying?
Oh no! Did you see him? Did you see him in the preseason?
Yes, I didn't watch any full games or anything like that, but I saw the highlights.
You need to. That's all you need to see is the highlights. You don't need to see anything else.
I hope he comes back in like a month. I know they said 2 months, but I hope he comes back, and I hope
he's young. His body can heal a little bit quicker.
I hope we have an 11th playoff contender in the West.
That would be fun to see, right? The kind of the Lakers in New Orleans team. Yeah. With some of those guys going over in the trade for Anthony Davis. No, I think that Zion, when he comes back, he is such a force. And yes, he might not put up the 30 or 40 points a night, but just everything he does, rebounding on the defensive side of the ball, blocking shots, I think he will be tops in the league for most blocked shots per game as well. His all-around game, he's just so physical, man. We haven't seen this in the NBA in years, and I can't even compare him to another guy. We know LeBron James has the strength, but just the hops and the ability to get up off the floor, I don't think we've seen that forever. So I think Zion comes back healthy, and I think he has even more of a chip on his shoulder because he is going to miss the first part of the season.
I would have picked Zion, but because he's missing earlier in the season, I just think the stats are going to be there, and I don't, in this West, I think they're going to lose a lot of games. Although even in my Rookie of the Year pick, he's probably going to lose the most games potentially, is John Morant. I think John Morant's going to have the stats there, and I think he's going to give the Grizzlies like 5 or 8 more wins than they probably want, because I think they're going to that pick. I think he's a real star, and he's going to be the next big point guard.
They are, and unfortunately, because that team is just so bad,
it's not his fault.
They're going to get overlooked, and it's not like they're on television all the time like the Lakers are or the Warriors are. But yeah, he will get some looks, but I'm just not so sure because of in that small market that he's in that he's going to get the necessary attention that he will probably deserve.
True. All right, finals prediction. I'll give mine first. Gave away already earlier. I think the Bucks are the best team in the East, and I'm going to go from the West. I think it's the team with the best overall roster, and I think that's the Los Angeles Clippers. I can't go against that roster. Like I want to, but I don't want to sound like the biased fan. But when they're fully healthy, Kawhi, Paul George, Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell, Patrick Beverley, Doc Rivers, and a plethora of very solid players coming off the bench. Landry Shamet as well. That's my finals team in the West. And I'm going to go with the Clippers. I'm going to go Kawhi Leonard wins 2 consecutive championships.
Wow.
What a series that would be, though. Bucks, Clippers, Kawhi versus Giannis, maybe future star versus current star. I think you have something different.
What a series that would be a small market team
So
in
I'm
the
going
Bucks.
Clippers. Yeah, I'm going Clippers with this as a champion.
A small market team in the Bucks and the ugly redheaded stepchild in LA with the Clippers right there. That would be a great matchup. No, I'm not picking those two teams. I kind of already gave mine away as well. I'm going with the Philadelphia 76ers out of the East. I think that they have, in my opinion, the most talent as a whole. And like I said, if Ben Simmons can get some type of jump shot, I don't care if it's from 3 or mid-range, give a defender a reason to actually come up and guard you, and that will only benefit the players around you. I think the Philadelphia 76ers come out of the East, and I think the LA Lakers, with the addition of Anthony Davis to pair with LeBron James, I think that will be too much to handle, especially when we're talking about like a 7-game series. I think the Lakers, like I said, they don't necessarily have a sharpshooter. You mentioned Green, who I do like, but on a consistent basis, I'm not so sure about him as being their one and only main guy. So if they can get in a trade maybe another consistent 3-point shooter, I know that KCP can shoot as well, but just I'm not sold on him throughout his career.
Yeah.
But other than the lack of potential 3-point shooting, I think the size of this Lakers team will wear down opponents, especially when they do get into the playoffs and we start talking about 7-game series. They're just going to wear guys down. So I'm going Lakers, Sixers, and of course I have to ride with the Lakers. Come on.
Well, LeBron James. I mean, it's
right.
not,
I think
I agree with you. If that's the finals, Lakers 100%.
I think the Sixers, are a very formidable opponent, and that would be a tough matchup. It's not like the Lakers would sweep the Sixers at all. But early, we're going back to the early 2000s days when the Lakers with Shaq and Kobe went up against the Sixers of Allen Iverson, and the Lakers ended up winning that series. I think we will have another ending with the Lakers and LeBron James winning his first championship with the Purple.
No matter what, it's going to be fun for us fans in LA. And it starts tomorrow or today.
Yeah.
You're watching this today. It starts today. Clippers, Lakers, although Clippers don't have Paul George, Lakers don't have Kyle Kuzma. But it's, this is going to be a preview of like how intense this series is going to be for the next couple of years too.
Thank you, schedule makers, for giving us this opening day present of the Lakers and Clippers right away.
Thing as well, Clippers actually play the Warriors the second game of the season.
Wow,
too.
two tough opponents.
Lakers play the Jazz. So we're going to see a lot of these like little matchups start season. But so remember I said that I thought it was going to be the Clippers and Rockets were going to be the conference finals. That's because I think because of the load management and the losses earlier in the season, I think it's going to be Lakers Clippers in like the first round. The way it's going to be like 3rd seed, 6th seed.
Give me Lakers Clippers at any point in the playoffs.
So one of those teams, I think, just based on schedule wise in the playoffs and seeding, will eliminate. They're not going to make these kind of finals. I think they actually are the 2 best teams, in my opinion. I'm just going to go with my team over yours, and you're going to go with my team over
that is why we have a debate podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Right there.
We'll update you on what we do with this Houston Rockets deal. We got to figure something out. We got to see what's truly fair.
Well, there's going to be some money on the line, but there's going to be something.
I'm not betting jerseys this time because I lose that every single time. I still owe our boy Alex Silva a night out in the town in the Denver Broncos jersey, which would be extra embarrassing because they're not good. But
little shot right there. All right.
Another team, my Cardinals, by the way, have a better record then. But we are not talking about football here. We're talking about basketball. This has been the NBA Predictions Podcast. We hope you enjoyed and you take our insight to heart. Again, he has the Lakers. Not surprising. I have the Clippers winning the NBA Finals. Something we couldn't have said the last couple of years, to be honest.
Exactly.
So we hope you enjoyed it, and we will be back next week and the next couple of weeks talking basketball, football, World Series. See you guys.